Welcome, friends, to La Sierra University's Sustainability Speakers Series. Building on the momentum of our first event, we're thrilled for the second installment, Ask the Experts, a fireside chat on regional sustainability efforts. Tonight's event brings together leading voices in sustainability across the region to share their experiences, strategies, and visions for a sustainable future. And our distinguished panelists, Rafael Guzman, Assistant City Manager and Chief Sustainability Officer for Riverside, Jonathan Parfrey, Founding Director of Climate Resolve, and Jessica Sutoris, Environmental Conservation Supervisor for the City of Colton. They're all innovators and advocates shaping sustainability practices throughout their diverse expertise. They will discuss cutting-edge initiatives in energy efficiency, climate resilience, and community-focused environmental stewardship. We especially get a chance to learn about initiatives like the LA Olympic Sustainable Planning, city planning for the growth of electric vehicles, and youth sustainability happening in the city of Riverside especially. My name is Pono Lopez, and I'll be your moderator this evening. This event invites you to engage directly with these leaders, exploring actionable insights for both individuals and organizations. So together we get to collaborate and uncover some things together. I'm beyond stoked to have you join this important conversation. I'm excited especially to have this conversation, even just for me. So let's work together to advance sustainability for community and beyond. To begin, I'd like to invite the three of you to share and introduce yourself. I believe we have some visuals that can accompany you to help us get acquainted with each of you. Jessica, we'll begin with you. Jonathan, you second, and Rafael will end our introductions with you. Jessica, if you please.
Thank you for having me. My name is Jessica Satoris. I'm the Environmental Conservation Supervisor for Colton Electric for, it's been this will be my 12th year. I'm a local born and raised here in the Inland Empire. I have been in the environmental realm and practicing initiatives to help reduce GHG emissions for the city for most of my career. I focus a lot on regulatory compliance and innovative ways to collaborate with neighboring cities and non-governmental organizations to help advance sustainability in the Inland Empire.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Parfrey. I'm the executive director, founding director of Climate Resolve. Previous to that, I was the director of something called the Green LA Coalition of all the environmental groups in Southern California working together. And then previous to that, I was the executive director of a group that won the Nobel Peace Prize called Physicians for Social Responsibility as the Southern California director, which included Riverside and San Bernardino counties. And I'll pass it over to Rafael.
Rafael Guzman, Assistant City Manager and Chief Sustainability Officer. I'm the first Sustainability Officer for the City of Riverside. I helped start the Office of Sustainability approximately 4 years ago, and we've been working to coalesce all of the city actions. Maybe another claim to fame is one of the only city managers in the state of California that has an environmental science master's degree. I found that to be a little odd, but meaningful, and I now know that there are several that have joined me in the city manager ranks, so that's incredible. In my role in the City of Riverside, I'm just going to peek back here. We have 2,700 employees. I am responsible for coalescing all of our plans. We have a climate action and adaptation plan that we kicked off this year. You'll see a number of different plans behind me here that show our intentional effort in a variety of spaces. And next slide, if this is okay to continue. One example is the city's strategic plan, and there is a strategic priority area of environmental stewardship, and in that is an objective, a goal to get to carbon neutrality by 2040. That's 5 years ahead of the state of California, so it's quite ambitious. We do that by trying to measure everything that we do and also to get to 100% renewable, carbon-free electric grid. Those are 2 of 6 core objectives that we have that are on the sustainability frontier. And I am really glad to be here tonight.
Like I said, we are so grateful for your presence, but also that we get to hear from your minds, and especially some of the things that are behind you as well. I mean, so much that you all have mentioned already are just things that we're excited to hear about. So Jessica, I'm going to begin with you. You have the first question. In the topic of EV infrastructure and community readiness, how is Colton adapting to support the growth of electric vehicles, and what have been the most significant challenges and wins so far?
I think what has been the greatest surprise was when initially, 2014, we started getting funding for electric vehicles. Out of the electric utility, I have funds that are very specific to what I'm allowed to spend on. Low carbon fuel standard was one avenue that I discovered was a way to make a little bit of funding to get resources to our community. In addition, partnering with the Air Quality Management District, we started putting in curbside EV chargers over where we have condensed housing, multifamily housing, with no availability for parking or having any infrastructure updates in that location. And many of the people that were running those types of multifamily weren't really interested at the time. So I kind of took a gamble. I applied for a bunch of grant funds and put in curbside EV charging. And it was incredible. They got used. And so that led to more infrastructure installations throughout the city into our county hospital. County hospitals are an amazing, any hospital actually, they're used 24 hours a day because nurses and doctors tend to drive electric cars. And at the time, it was interesting. I serve a low-income, disadvantaged community. I didn't know how many people would actually drive electric cars because they were so expensive, but the used car market wasn't. And AQMD, at the same time, had a partnership program. If you turned in your junker and got an electric car, they would give you up to $10,000. So what was once a market that didn't exist created a market that existed with used electric vehicles and curbside charging that was being used by our, which would have been considered our low-income housing locations.
Yeah, I imagine just all these incentives provides the market and pushes the market for that. And so you already setting up the infrastructure just adds so much more to that. I mean, that's amazing. Thank you so much. I might have actually one more question, if that's okay. With over 2 decades in public service, what have you found most effective in educating communities about energy conservation and environmental sustainability?
I think what I've learned is there's no boundaries and territories between cities when it comes to pollution. And we kind of, in the Inland Empire, just air quality suffers from the mountains trapping so much emissions in this area. Working together and realizing that whatever we do to improve our community improves our city next door. I think that's just important overall. It's for healthy living. And everything we try to do is to create a better community and a better environment for the Inland Empire.
Oh, thank you so much. Rafael, on the topic of youth involvement in sustainability, how does the City of Riverside engage young people in its projects, the sustainability projects, especially given the focus on long-term climate resilience?
So we have a number of programs that are really designed to activate young people in sustainability or climate resiliency. I have a few examples that I'd like to share. One is we have fellows or positions that we hire part-time, full-time college students that are in our Office of Sustainability that are working on real, tangible projects. So that's really exciting. That came on the heels of a very successful workforce youth development program where we hired 100 fellows and placed them both in City Hall. They were working on food resiliency. They were working on our urban forestry. They were working on climate resiliency projects. And The other half of those 100 fellows were embedded through agreements with nonprofit organizations, Tree People, Feeding America. So there are real opportunities that come with salaries, if you will. So it's great to not only learn, but to also get paid for that work. It's meaningful work. It makes a difference in the community. Those also come in the form of apprenticeships or internships. So there's a lot of opportunities for students to get involved. We also have a STEM lab at our Gordon Bourne's Youth Innovation Center. So for example, one class is an aquaponics class where students can learn about sustainable farming practices. We have a number of other actions like, or opportunities like a climate action days where we mobilize community members in the community to plant trees. We do murals. We're involved with teaching the community how to mulch and the benefits of taking on sustainable practices. So there's a lot of opportunities. And then where I think it really starts is the K through 12. And we have team members in our public utility that go out and share energy efficiency practices, actions that you can do as an individual that they take home with them, that they embrace. And I think that entire spectrum of everything activating K through 12, providing events that are child-friendly, that are youth-focused, and ultimately providing jobs, opportunities to get experience and build their resume.
So it's such a vast portfolio, I'm noticing. With that, how has that attracted some of the grants and investments that we've seen or that you may want to see?
Yeah, I think those are great opportunities where once you show a community a different pathway that leads to different outcomes, it may be better air quality, it may be a whole host of things that just improve the things that matter to them. We're starting to see community groups really take on these sustainable pledges and become a part of our grant team. And I think the best example would be the Eastside Climate Collaborative. That involved 9 different stakeholders, the city, the county. It also involved a couple of different nonprofits, the Community Settlement Association, longstanding community neighborhood groups in the east side area of the City of Riverside, Tree People, Grid Alternatives, and those outcomes were really measurable. We were able to apply for a grant that would make a big difference, and 100 homes received solar. We also did over 100,000 square feet of turf removal. We planted 2,000 shade trees and fruit trees. We were able to build a 65 unit affordable housing development. There was a mobility hub that was enhanced with additional bus bays and free bus passes for the neighborhood so they could get around, utilizing a clean and green mobility system. So just a whole host of ways, and ultimately measuring along the way and being able to demonstrate a healthier outcome. And I think it was about 240,000 tons of greenhouse gas reduction as a result of that collective of actions. And I think the real magic sauce to our application was the community involvement. And that really started with activating some of our younger population and connecting with neighborhoods in a different way.
Yeah, very attainable numbers. I mean, that's amazing. Jonathan, on the topic of the LA 28 Olympics, I mean, we're so excited for this event, but how are sustainability goals being set and achieved for the LA 28 Olympics? And are any specific public transit goals in place to ensure the sustainability of the event or building reuse initiatives that you would like to maybe talk about?
Well, with this cough, I sound like an Olympian, I'm sure. So I apologize. There's a date that I'd like you all to commit to memory. It's July 14th, 2028.
Yep.
That's opening ceremonies. And so it promises to be very exciting. And over the course of both the Olympics and the Paralympics that are to take place largely in Southern California, but it goes beyond our own borders. There is going to be around 10 million people coming into Southern California. And this is in the middle of summer, so there are concerns about extreme heat. And frankly, because these are athletic events and people getting to athletic events, there's going to be a need for a strong heat planning effort to help people at that time. That's something that our organization has been very much involved in. There is a site that has already been identified in Riverside County in Temecula for the equestrian Olympics. And I've been in Temecula in July. It's warm. It's warm there. I gotta admit. And so I'm a little concerned. We have to prepare to help people deal with the hotter temperatures that we're going to see. There are a number of ideas behind it. They're still in development. And to be clear, I am not speaking on behalf of the LA 28 committee. I happen to serve on its sustainability committee, but they are developing a plan, and the plan does entail work related to extreme heat. It also entails work related to reducing greenhouse gas emissions through the work of the team. You know what's amazing about the upcoming LA Olympics is that they don't have to build any new venues, which is kind of amazing. They are the energy that goes into building new buildings, as they saw in Paris, that they saw in Tokyo, that they saw in London, all of those had incredible embodied energy in those facilities, and LA doesn't have to do that. And then when it comes to transportation, this has been leaked in the media, and I have to report that it's true. If you think you're going to drive to a venue, park your car, and walk in, you're in for a rude surprise. Because for a few reasons. One is security. We live in a world today where there are a lot of considerations about protecting the public, and the Olympics are a big fat target for some people who don't want the United States to succeed, and it's a sad truth. And so we, the Olympic Committee has been very clear that they need a perimeter around the venues, and that people can access the venues through a number of buses. And it is hoped that these will be electric buses or hydrogen fuel cell buses to enable the region after the Olympics take place to have use of those buses for everyday use, so that we can make a leap forward in providing that mobility during the games, but that they have a lasting benefit for the region after that.
Thank you for that. So I'm actually going to pivot over to questions that all of you can answer. The first being this. Local to global, La Salle University's sustainability program, studies program, aligns closely with the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals, aiming to make a global impact through local action. So how do each of you incorporate those SDGs into your work? And in what ways can smaller communities and local initiatives like those you lead drive meaningful contributions to these local global goals?
So I'll go ahead and just mention really quickly, I kind of wrote down some notes because there are several important things to look at. But one thing that's the most interesting about California on the regulatory side is there's so many existing laws that have developed a lot of these initiatives to become in play just because they're the law. So when I looked at Zero Hunger, for example, SB 1383 has put a lot of rules in place where cities have to make sure and be responsible that there is no food waste, because food waste equates to methane gases, and methane gas is a greenhouse gas that needs to be reduced. So state of California now, CalRecycle requires us to make sure food waste is diverted. And that helps end hunger because now we have many food banks that have an abundance of food that didn't have before. So that was one of those things that had a positive consequence from a regulatory law that's in place today. Clean water and sanitation, new regulation to make California water a way of life. California, we're unique. Most of us get most of our water here in the Inland Empire from the ground. We share basins. Well, we have to be responsible and make sure that those basins are all at safe yields. So during long times of drought, with the effects of climate change, we still have water to provide for future generations. And that's going to be a different change. And you can already see all new development. Grass is not going to be a thing of the future. It takes a lot of water and it is not sustainable. So these laws are already in place that have good intended consequences. Affordable and clean energy. I mean, I think like you mentioned, we have a carbon neutrality goal as well. We got rid of, as a utility, got rid of any coal back in 2017. We have geothermal, solar, wind, natural gas is our only emissions that we have, but it's such a small amount because it's a peaker plant. It doesn't have an emissions factor that we even report. With that said, that's a whole nother changing environment. We also, as an American society, think that every time we turn on a switch that there's power there for us. And it's an expectation that most people have. And we use power for everything. It really is such an essential part of your life that we take it for granted. And we have goals to make it all renewable, which I potentially think we can get there, but it's going to be a sacrifice. And it's challenging to make it equitable and cheap for everyone, because power is not available all the time cheaply. Power is available cheaply from 9 to 3 p.m. After that, all that solar goes off the grid, and it is very expensive to power most of California. So there's going to be innovative ways to look into the future of alternative energies, but that's a whole nother thing to kind of, you try to do your best, but I don't know if there's an easy answer for that. Sustainable cities and communities. I think one thing, and this is me growing up in the Inland Empire, and something that I noticed after COVID, and I think we live in a generation now where our youth kind of sees this as a regular on-demand buy anything you want through Amazon, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that we've changed how we shop and how we do things, and it produces a lot of emissions. Although the state of California, again, has made laws where we have ACF rules, which is Advanced Clean Fleets, so they do expect that all of our fleets are going to be green and alternative, which cities are mandated 50% starting January, which a lot of us have made the efforts to move in that direction, but transport of goods, that's going to be an interesting thing. We want a clean environment, but we still live in a society of overconsumerism, and we want things when we want them, so we order them, and it magically appears the next day in a box. And so that is something to consider, that to make good decisions for yourself. In the end of the day, I was taught this in school in my graduate program, which was in environmental education. Every environmental impact that exists today is all human-made. And without us, there wouldn't be any. So we've definitely put ourselves in our own jobs today.
Yeah, well, that's for sure.
I'd love to add on to that. I thought that was a fantastic response to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. There's really a couple that I wanted to address. So in addition to the compliance, those things that we have to do, rest assured the City of Riverside is going above and beyond, and I was going to give a couple of examples of that, because we want to be a leader not just here in the county or the Inland Empire, but in the nation. And for goal number 2, which is about promoting sustainable agriculture, we will be putting a shovel in the ground in December for the first in the U.S. solar greenhouse and agrivoltaic project. It's called the Northside Ag Innovation Center, and it is really going to electrify and add renewable energy production in a controlled environment ag context. So we will be growing with 80% less water. We expect to have 2 to 3 times the typical yield that you would normally see outside without the shading of the agrivoltaics or in a solar greenhouse. And I think to pivot to the third UN goal, which is promoting well-being for all, we know that is quality of life is important for the City of Riverside. So we've taken on the initiative of Blue Zones, and we hope to be the largest city in the U.S. with a Blue Zones designation. That is academically the places around the planet that have the highest concentration of centenarians. So those that live to be 100 plus, not just living long, but living well. And so that is a 5-year undertaking that we just launched this last month. So we're very excited about that. Goal number 6 from the United Nations is sustainable management of water. I really enjoyed hearing about what you're doing in the city of Colton. We are a part of a multi-agency collaborative. The Seven Oaks Dam Water Recharge Project is one of those where we are capturing atmospheric rivers and we are recharging the underground aquifer of the Bunker Hill Basin. And I'm not going to talk in terms of acre feet, but in terms of gallons of water, I think we can all relate to that. This year, we will be able to harvest from the early 2024 atmospheric river about 24 billion gallons of water. So we're very proud of that, and we have to be good stewards of the aquifers. In terms of affordable, reliable, sustainable energy, the city has some of the lowest electric rates in the state, if not the lowest. So we're very proud of that. It's reliable, but we're doubling down on that, and we have a very ambitious project where we're investing $700 million in expanding that infrastructure to future-proof the city from an electrical perspective for the next 50 years. And we hope to be 68% renewable, non-greenhouse gas sourced energy by 2030. That is in play through power purchase agreements. Much like my colleague, we have solar, geothermal, wind, a whole host of sources of energy. And the last one, which I'll just touch on that I noted that was of interest, was goal number 13, actions to combat climate change. So I mentioned several projects that we have in various areas that are moving the needle, but we're also, with intent, putting together a climate action and adaptation plan over the next 2 years to really measure our greenhouse gas emissions, but also set objective goals, measure that, and show by action that the city is making a difference. And we hope that all of this is open source and can be shared with any other city, county that is like-minded and wants to understand a positive, clean, green path forward.
Wonderful, yeah. Ambitious and attainable. Jonathan, just wanted to...
No, I would, Rafael, can I ask you a question? I was wondering, the people in the audience here, if they're residents of the City of Riverside, how can they be involved and be part of the climate action activities that you so eloquently described?
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to hopefully not embarrass Marilyn. Can you raise your hand? Marilyn is one of our sustainability office analysts. She's a great person to connect with if you're interested. We have, with the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, a very ambitious and aggressive outreach. We have over 100 community events planned where we will be doing pop-up opportunities to connect with folks in your neighborhood. There are also opportunities where we will have, like we did a couple weeks ago, a Future Fest, where we invite folks to come out, take a breather, take a pause, and engage in really dynamic learning exercises and for us to get feedback from you. But I was reminded of a very important sort of regional group as well, the Inland Climate Collaborative, which I think is a really exciting organization that if you're a resident of Riverside, it applies, but if you interact with other communities or have friends in other cities, that you can come together and talk in a safe space about sustainability and be involved with projects and connect. But I do encourage you to connect with Marilyn, who's here. We would love to share events that are happening in the community, whether those are events that happen at city parks, in our libraries, or in your neighborhood. And we will be, and I'm looking at Marilyn here, launching our Office of Sustainability website that will have a community calendar, places that, a one-stop shop where you can go and find out activities that are happening here locally, regionally, or in the state for that matter. So hope that answers your question about how to connect and engage, because we want to coalesce. We want your energy, and we need champions when we bring these very difficult ideas forward to the city council. When we are putting together a grant application, we need a diversity of voices to show intent and purpose. So everyone's welcome, and please reach out to myself or Marilyn, and we'd be happy to connect you. Thank you for the question.
Well, and you're speaking to some of our students who are just extremely cause-based. So I'm so excited and grateful that you're plugging this, because honestly, I'm so we need this website up and running for our students to engage with already. Marilyn, if you would wave your hand one more time so that people can see. Everybody, look at Marilyn. That's the person you're going to talk to after this. Thank you again. I'm actually going to open it up to questions, Q&A from all of our audience members. If they have any questions, so question and answers. You raise your hand and I'll point you out, and then some of our people are going to be walking over to you. I saw a reluctant hand go up. Is that? That was something.
Can I, while we're waiting for that person, can I ask Jessica a question?
Sure, yes.
So, Jessica, you're developing a climate resilience plan. How's that going?
You know, it's going really good. I think what we're trying to get right now is the community input. That has been such a challenge to get people to kind of give feedback and fill out surveys. We're really interested in knowing what they're afraid of for the future of climate changing.
Yeah.
You know, and one good thing we've had out of the survey so far, and this is kind of what you mentioned about planting trees, we've planted 2,000 trees in the last 5 years through many grants and partnerships with tree people as well, and a program we do through the utility and through the water department, and people wanted more trees. And I was actually shocked at this, because as many people want trees, I get calls for people wanting to remove trees at the same time.
Fascinating.
So it was nice to see that there are people that care about trees the way I do.
So there's an equal sort of balance happening.
I'm a big tree lover for sure.
Oh man, no, thank you for that question so much.
So talking about sustainability, there are many topics to deal with, helping improve our environment, like recycling, improving technology, these different environmental topics. But I'm sure many of us are curious here, specifically in Riverside, if there's any particular issue that's a major concern compared to the other topics like agriculture, focusing on plant-based diets. I'm just curious here specifically in Riverside, is there a particular concern that's being targeted?
Yeah, so I'll give it a shot, and it might be something that we're all sort of facing, which is the city of Riverside is not terribly unique in Southern California, and heat is a big issue for us. Mm-hmm. I think when we socialize hurricanes, in fact, one is named after me. I think it's the other way around. Hurricane Rafael, you may have heard of it. It was very disruptive. It caused a lot of PTSD for folks that were in its path. And I think we're very familiar with different types of weather events. The Weather Channel has popularized that. One of the extreme killers in the city of Riverside, the county, really the United States, is heat. And I think it sort of goes unknown or unnoticed, or for whatever reason, it's a bit invisible. And that magic point where you have a hard time respirating when you get to that wet bulb moment is really frightening. If you're working outside, you might need someone to kind of keep an eye on you, to kind of stop. If you're hiking, you're biking, just being active. We're seeing hotter average temperature days throughout our environment here. We're also seeing higher average cool temperatures. So it's sort of this rising heat profile. On top of that, we have extreme heat where we're punching above 115 degrees. Riverside, as a whole, maybe the last 10, 15 years, we've seen, maybe 5 to 15 days exceeding 115 degrees. That's still quite hot, don't get me wrong, but going forward, without change, without really changing our practices, we could see 60 to 90, 115 degrees. That's really sort of dealing with how we go about conducting our business, how we move goods around, how we move ourselves, what kind of cars we drive, our fleets, what kind of propulsion system. I love hearing the LA Olympics is getting into hydrogen buses, hopefully hydrogen trains. But on a more surgical sort of aspect, heat kills. And we can do a lot better job. And Jonathan and his organization, Climate Resolve, we just applied for a grant to tabletop and exercise with our Emergency Operations Center. We deploy and activate a lot of cooling centers. We do a lot of things to provide safe havens, but they're not always well attended, and we still see people out at those times of days, and it could be football practice or some environment that we have in our control to change our behavior. And I don't know if it's naming heat waves. I'll volunteer my name for one of those. But yeah, so some way to normalize and talk about it and look at ways that we can adapt, but also mitigate. That might be cool pavements, things of that nature. But heat really concerns me. And I was talking to our Riverside County health officer, and that is one of the things that keeps them up at night as well, because it's just not well understood. It's not embraced, and we don't message effectively in that space.
I think also, just to add, during 2 years ago was when we had those extreme 115 degrees. Well, a lot of our equipment in general is not designed to withstand that type of heat because we don't live in those climates. Yeah. We had the most failures of equipment and transformers failing during that period with the most outages. And again, we serve, a lower income disadvantaged community, and those are concerns. It was also during a time period where it was very challenging to get transformers replaced. We had a supply chain issue because of the ramifications of COVID, and that's something we still suffer from. So it's one of those things that is a big concern for all different realms of running a city.
I was going to say, do you have we were also seeing some photovoltaic, so solar panels on roofs and the inverters melting because the roof was getting so hot.
Right.
So just a whole nother infrastructure issue.
Yeah, and extreme heat does result in more death and injury than any other natural disaster that's out there. FEMA, frankly, is not very well equipped to deal with it because it's not property damage. For the most part, there is some property damage from extreme heat, such as inverters and transformers going out, but in large measure, it is human health that really suffers. There is a program at the state of California now that is funding experimental projects related to extreme heat. It's called the Extreme Heat Community Resilience Program, and it has about $100 million in it. That's something that our organization actually lobbied for successfully to get that funded. And we did it with the motivation of helping people prepare for the heat waves of tomorrow. And frankly, every death and injured person from extreme heat is preventable. It's something that we can do. And so there are answers. There's people staying hydrated. There's people taking shade. There are people doing timeouts and not going out into the public space if they don't need to. And when it comes to protecting people, there's cooling centers, but a lot of people like staying at home. And so, frankly, and this is a religious institution, and I think this message should resonate with you, we really do need to take care of each other. And we need to check up on people who may not have other options, and they need people to visit them and make sure they're okay. Because the 92-year-old person who needs a cooling center isn't going to walk 3 or 4 miles to a cooling center. It's just not, in a 100-degree temperature, it's not happening. So we have to be our brother's keeper.
I appreciate that. That's such a tangible application to a lot of that. Now, I just want to clarify, because are you saying that that extreme heat is usually just considered wear and tear versus actual property damage? Like there's not much coverage.
When it comes to FEMA, they look at property damage as where they're able to intervene. And some of that has to do with infrastructure, and there are federal dollars that can be helpful there. But one of the areas that the FEMA is involved in is that 1 out of every $10 that they give, they want that to go to mitigating against the next disaster. So California has had a series of wildfires and some flooding, and FEMA dollars have come into play. Unfortunately, the California OES, the Governor's Office of Emergency Management, has been unable to use those prevention dollars related to extreme heat. It's the FEMA regulations just can't get out of their own way to be able to apply those funds for things like shade structures in parks. I know Riverside has some beautiful public spaces. They would be even more beautiful, I think, if they had umbrellas that could open up during extremely hot days, and then when it's cooled down, they can go back. Maybe this campus as well. There are places where over certain streets you could have screens, but those require O&M. And as we hear from Jessica, there aren't always that revenue dollars coming in that will help you manage things like these shade structures. Working hydration stations and drinking fountains. I'm afraid it costs money to make sure that they're still operating, and there are answers out there, and I think the public cares about this, and they want people who don't have resources to be taken care of. But we have to make the case that we need to look out for each other, and there are smart things that we can do to take care of each other during these extreme heat waves. And unfortunately, due to the climate crisis, there are more of these days to come.
Yeah, indeed. Somebody here on our left. Go ahead.
Recently, have any of you seen companies being more open to sustainable practices? And I'm also curious what strategies have been effective in motivating them to go beyond minimum regulatory standards.
So did I hear the question correctly? What businesses are doing, if I'm seeing businesses doing anything? Okay, so one, I want to share this, and I was actually impressed. A lot of people don't know this, but Walmart, of all, Walmart Corporation, actually has a carbon neutrality goal by 2030, which is very aggressive, and they are massive. And I was very surprised, but they actually came out and met with all the utilities and shared with us they're already electrified all of their drayage. They look at investing in electric trucks for short haul in the region, and so they are definitely taking on sustainability goals, and I think a lot of corporations are doing that. I almost don't know any corporation out there right now that doesn't have a sustainability officer. They're looking at things in a totally different view, basically because of everyone in this room. Students and future buyers and purchasers of product want businesses to be environmental stewards. They want to know that their product isn't, irresponsibly sourced.
So Microsoft is not only trying to reach carbon neutrality, they're opening up their own history books within Microsoft to say, we want to get rid of all the greenhouse gases we ever created since the beginning of the company. Wow. So I was impressed by that. But with the advent of AI and crypto, there's going to be much more demands on local power. And our organization was responsible in some measure for a new law it's a regulation rather than a law in California to ensure that indoor workers are protected from extreme heat. And so there is a standard that the warehouses here in the IE now have to meet to protect the workers. And that may result in additional use of electrification and air conditioning, I think a legitimate one. But there will be additional demands on the grid. So Jessica's job is just starting.
I think it's a great question. Just to add, I love hearing that about some of the bigger companies. It's sometimes helpful to hear some of the smaller companies and where their mindset is. Our bread and butter here in the City of Riverside is small business. That represents at least 70% of our businesses. So we regularly meet and check in with them, and they are very hungry for sustainable practices, energy efficiency. They're looking at the bottom line, and it doesn't have to be one or the other. It's not just about sort of the economy or making a profit. They're also looking at from a perspective of environmental stewardship. So we set up a partnership with the California Green Business Network that goes into any company that's interested in having an assessment of their energy practices. So we look sort of soup to nuts at all of their systems and try to identify efficiencies that result in maybe cleaner air, less effluent, less waste, but also there's a return on that investment. We're also seeing several buildings that are being constructed to LEED standards. Kaiser, which is doing a $700 million expansion here in the City of Riverside, they're building all of their buildings now to LEED Gold. That was a corporate decision. So we're really seeing a kind of a shift in the marketplace that it matters not only to their mindset, their board, it's also their customers that are driving that. And I think it's really exciting to see, but sometimes they just need a little, I think someone said it earlier, a little nudge in the right direction. And that's the Green Business Network. They know that space and place, and they're able to talk their language, and we're simply facilitating that conversation. And in most instances, they're saving money while being better environmental stewards.
I actually have a question about that nudge. What does a nudge typically look like?
Yeah, so sometimes it's and I was thinking about, just so excited to hear La Sierra has a sustainability program and majors, and you're in this space. And what is that takeaway that you need when you leave the classroom, you have your degree in hand, and you enter the marketplace, public sector, private sector, nonprofit? You need to really know how to be really mindful of change management. The status quo is not working. It doesn't matter what space, what sector, and those nudges are doing things a little bit differently that still result in sort of the same piece of equipment or service being delivered, but with maybe a little bit of cost savings, but in a more environmentally friendly, sustainable manner that hopefully reduces greenhouse gases at the same time. So it is little things that can make a big difference because there is no silver bullet. We need a lot of positive movement in a wide array of areas to really reduce our carbon footprint, to get to carbon neutrality. And we need some big wins, things that are carbon negative. There are very few things that are carbon negative. One that I was learning about recently is biochar. This is a product that we are producing at our water quality control plant as we are diverting food scraps, banana peels. Picture the flux capacitor in the DeLorean of Back to the Future, and using that to power. We've converted a digester to an anaerobic digester, and we're turning a fuel cell, and that fuel cell is creating electricity that's powering the plant. We're taking our water quality control plant off the grid. That is a complete change, a paradigm shift. But those little nudges reduce methane emissions because we're removing those organics from the landfill. We're using them for a renewable, basically a biogas to power a plant. You could power a fleet. We're negotiating right now with SoCal Gas to reverse pipe any extra that we have to help them green their portfolio. So really just doing a systems check. Those nudges can all across the board. There's no magic here, but just questioning the way we do business and trying to come up with different outcomes.
Thank you so much. So in the last few minutes that we have, are there any maybe closing comments, closing plugs that you'd like to sort of give?
I see a young woman with a microphone in the third row.
Let's give this one, sorry.
Sorry to keep you guys extra time, but
No, this is good.
I know we're about to get a new presidential administration, and I know that the last time that person was president, EPA funding was slashed, and we were pulled out of the Paris Climate Agreement, and generally just an administration that doesn't prioritize sustainability at all. Do you think that's going to be a significant roadblock for you at a more local level if the federal regulations for sustainability are going to be pulled back?
That's a very good question. In fact, before everyone arrived, we were discussing that. We've been through this before. What we certainly will see is a dry up of federal funds that we would apply for normally to support programs that we need for the Inland Empire. I will say this, and I tell people this all the time. California, we've always been trailblazers in sustainability. We are the third largest economy, and we really do hold up the rest of the United States when it comes to funding. When we go to other states and talk about our sustainability programs, other states look to us as the leaders on how to do it. So I don't know if California will slow down. I'm sure there's going to be probably a delay for the next 4 years, and just seeing more investments done on the federal side. But I'm curious, things have shifted in a strange manner in certain ways where I don't know if electrification necessarily will slow down. There's been quite an investment in car manufacturing for electric vehicles. I know, driving one myself, well, once you go electric, you never go back. It's like the greatest thing ever. So although I do see that there will be some slowdown, I do not think it'll stop the momentum that we've created and worked on all these years.
And the cheapest source of electricity now?
Still solar.
Solar. And so the economics are lining up that it's more efficient to have an electric car, it's more efficient to have solar and wind in your portfolio. So there is a kind of, there's been a movement towards it. It doesn't mean that it's there forever. And I thank you for your question. And I hope that these examples of what's taking place at the local level are inspiring, that there can be these examples of trying to make a difference at the local and state level. So thanks.
Thank you so much again. Yeah, and I'm going to ask one more time if there's any other plug. You know, we are going to be talking to Marilyn at some point. Marilyn, right? Yes. But if there's any other thing that we can get involved, if we can get engaged with, please let us know.
I think just having these talks and being active with your sustainability group, seeking out what cities offer and when they need assistance and help, and just really being involved. A lot of the things you do in your behavior change makes a huge difference. And I do hope that, just keep in mind, although sometimes the environmental realm can seem a little negative, it really isn't. There are so many smart kids out there every day coming up with everything better that lasts longer, that's more efficient. And we're in this amazing time period where the technology is just, it's changing every day. And you guys are such in a great spot where things are going to be so much better when you grow older into the job workforce than it was for us. So I'm really excited for what comes and what you guys are going to bring to the world to just make it a much better, cleaner place.
Thank you. Thank you. I've honestly truly appreciated, again, the fact that we're doing things on the local level that's affecting us in the global. I mean, it all starts on the local. And so having three of you here with us sharing how we can get involved as well, solid. So appreciate you all. One more time, please, our panelists.